Now, I made that video a couple days ago about the widow who passionately gave the woman who killed her husband the business for drinking and driving and killing her husband. And you can see on that dummy's face the shame and the guilt. And we could celebrate that this dummy had shame and guilt on her face because she's gone away for a long time. But what if we took the scenario of dummy taking the life of someone else's family member, and instead of shame and guilt on the face, there's ignorance within the voice?
Moses Lopez is a monster and will always be one.
Tonight, the family of a radio cab driver who was stabbed to death while on the job is reacting to how long his killer will spend behind bars. Some family members don't think justice was served. Moses Lopez was sentenced to 22 years in prison after pleading guilty to manslaughter. Lopez was originally charged with the murder of Reese Lawhon, but accepted a plea deal. K2's Emily Gersh is live at the Multnomah County Courthouse explaining why the family is struggling with this deal, even though they were a part of the process. What are they saying?
Yeah, Deb, the family of Reese Lawhon said Moses Lopez deserves to be in jail for life, and settling on a plea deal doesn't give them closure.
The family impact statements were emotional.
When Moses gets out in 20 years, assuming she's still alive, and trust me, I hope she's not, I look forward to testifying against her for whatever senseless crime that she commits next, because she will.
I'm haunted daily by what Reese must have felt in those last 45 seconds. I wonder, was he scared? Did he think of us? Was he in pure shock? And was he in pain?
On the evening of Easter Sunday 2023, Lopez got into Lawhon's cab. Surveillance video from inside shows Lopez stab Lawhon in the neck, killing him. The last person Lawhon talked to was his mother, Ginger. She had called to wish him a happy Easter.
He returned the call shortly, saying he was working and would call later to visit. He never did. The world itself has been transformed and made deficient.
Why did District Attorney Mike Schmidt approve of the plea deal, downgrading the murder charge to manslaughter? He was not available to speak with us today, but in a separate interview from November, he said the reasons for plea deals vary based on the evidence, the defendant's criminal history, how similar cases in the past were handled, and also what the victim's family wants.
I've had some parents want to have a restorative process with the defendant. I've had some parents that feel like they would want the maximum penalty and everywhere in between.
In a statement from the Lawhon family, Reese's sister said they accepted the plea deal for their parents so they wouldn't have to keep reliving the horror of what happened to their son. But the impact it's had on them is more complicated.
I get to live with the image of watching Moses Lopez murder my brother, and a vision that I will live with for the rest of my life. And it brings me daily in constant sadness.
Now, the DA's office did send us a statement today saying in part, quote, "We hope today's resolution brings some closure that will allow the healing process to continue." Now, one of Lawhon's co-workers at Radio Cab also attended the sentencing today. Hear what he had to say coming up at 6 o'clock. For now, live in downtown Portland, Emily Gersh, K2 News.
At her sentencing on Wednesday, Lopez callously justified the murder by blaming a lack of mental health support and a system she saw as failing her. I refused to apologize for the lack of help I so desperately needed and called and asked for from 911 services. She also moaned that her gender identity meant that she felt targeted and vulnerable to the attack the paper reported. I ended up in a very scary part of town where I was genuinely afraid, Lopez said at her sentencing, claiming her gender identity leaves her often feeling targeted. And I want you to hear how this dummy says these things.
I refuse to apologize for the lack of help I so desperately needed and called and asked for from 911 services. Know that I accept the way that you feel. I am sorry for what happened, and I am sorry that you lost someone you loved. I hope that someday something can bring you peace to your soul.
I have been called transphobic for so much less that honestly makes me question how many people would actually consider themselves allies to the LGBTQ community and those who suffer from gender identity. Having said that, I just want everybody to know I don't give a fuck about this person's gender identity, and you may be asking me why, because it's a very serious thing and people struggle with it, and how dare you say something that could be considered so transphobic or homophobic or lesbian phobic or bisexual phobic or queer phobic. Here's the reason. The motherfucker killed somebody, and based on security footage that was in the cab, was just sitting in the back, and as soon as this piece of shit felt uncomfortable with a turn a cab driver took, she decided to take action. And I'm sitting here wondering, how could I possibly care about your gender identity knowing that you did that? How am I supposed to care about what you got going on knowing you did that? How am I going to hear you blame 911 for not really being capable in dealing with what you got going on to the point where you turn around and take somebody else's life that came to help you by bringing you to wherever you were going to go? How am I supposed to feel bad for you in any capacity? I don't, especially when it's highlighted that the guy you killed would have been somebody that would help you.
This should have been a life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Those who know and love Lahan say he would have been more than willing to help her had she spoken up about her situation.
She never once said a single word in that cab ride. If she would have said to Reese, I need help, he would have helped her. Her assistance would have been right there in the front seat of that car. It could have been very different.
Now, do we know that as a matter of fact? No. Are we willing to take the chance on some stranger helping us, especially if we don't know them, knowing that we got all these different examples of cab situations going wrong? I don't know, because that's a 50-50 chance trusting a stranger. But considering that people are so confident in it, you might be willing to believe that this guy would have assisted you if all you did was open your mouth instead of sitting in the back silently and uncomfortably, knowing that you're somehow prone to attack if you don't have things go your certain way. It is stupid for you to be so proud in what you are saying, and I agree with the family member in what she said about you.
When Moses gets out in 20 years, assuming she's still alive, and trust me, I hope she's not, I look forward to testifying against her for whatever senseless crime that she commits next, because she will.
You are probably going to get out of jail if you don't end up dying from old age and yada, yada, yada. And you are going to be somebody who hasn't learned from anything, and you're going to do it all over again. And at that point, these people are going to speak up once again to highlight, yeah, you're a fucking dumbass who hasn't learned a thing. And I'm not really gonna go the route of being mad at family members for agreeing to a plea deal just to get it over with, because I can understand everybody's different. Everybody deals with grief of a family member different. And if you don't want to constantly have to hear details about your family member being murdered, I can understand you just trying to figure out a way to get it over with while still seeking a consequence for the person who killed your family member. So you know what? Props to them. I hope they find some way to heal at some point in time in their life. But for this piece of shit, I hope nothing but the worst. I don't care that your insert letter here, and I don't care about your gender identity. I don't care about your mental health problems. Why? Because if I'm gonna be a little bit consistent with every other fucking time that this gets brought up as a means of deflection and a little bit of arrogance or an excuse, you took somebody's fucking life. And that makes me say nothing more but fuck you. Subscribe to the channel. I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.